The average home in London costs over £550,000. You know this already. Your children know it. Your grandchildren have given up pretending otherwise. But within an hour or so of the capital, there are places the property market seems to have forgotten. Towns where the housing is genuinely good. Villages where the community is intact. Prices that make you wonder whether someone has made a clerical error. I have gone through land registry records, Savills research, local council data, and community forums to find 13 of them. Places that rarely appear in property supplements. Places where the locals go quiet when outsiders ask about house prices. Now, before we dive in, if you find this helpful, tap that subscribe button. You will not want to miss what is coming next. Faversham sits in North Kent, roughly 15 miles from Canterbury, just off the M2 motorway. It is officially the oldest recorded market town in England. Markets have been held here on Tuesdays, Fridays and Saturdays since the medieval period, and they still run today. Walk down Abbey Street or West Street, and you pass Tudor and Georgian houses that have stood for centuries. The timber frames lean at angles that would terrify a modern surveyor, but they have not fallen yet, and they are not going to. The average house price in Faversham over the past 12 months is around £335,000. That is roughly £220,000 less than the London average. Small terraced houses near the creek sell for between £100,000 and £150,000. Prices here actually dipped slightly in the past year, while much of the southeast held steady or rose. The train to London Victoria takes just under an hour. Shepherd Neame, Britain's oldest brewery, was founded here in 1692 and still operates from the same site. The Macknade Food Hall draws visitors from across the county. Standard Quay, down by the creek, has been converted into a cluster of antique shops and cafes in old warehouses that still smell of timber and salt water. Muddy Stilettos named Faversham one of the best places to live in 2025. Regional newspapers described it as a hidden gem kept by locals. The M2 motorway carries 500,000 people past it every single week. Almost none of them stop. That is rather the point. Heading southeast into the Kent Downs, we find the village of Wye, population around 2,200. It sits in an area of outstanding natural beauty and feels like a Cotswold village that somehow ended up in the Garden of England. The crown monument carved into the chalk hillside above the village is visible for miles around. The Church of St Gregory and St Martin anchors the centre. Stone cottages and period houses line narrow lanes that wind toward the Great Stour River. The high-speed rail service from Ashford, one stop away, reaches St Pancras in under an hour. Property here averages around £420,000. In the Cotswolds, a comparable village with this kind of landscape, architecture and community would cost you north of £600,000, easily. Wye College, which was once part of Imperial College London, closed in 2009. The village was supposed to decline after that. Instead, locals fought off inappropriate development proposals and the community rallied. What remains is a village that chose its own future. The Wife of Bath pub does a roaring trade. The farmers' market is not a lifestyle accessory here. People actually rely on it. Moving west into Berkshire, we reach Cookham. This is the village that inspired Stanley Spencer, one of England's most distinctive painters, who depicted the resurrection of the dead happening right here in the Holy Trinity churchyard. The Stanley Spencer Gallery, run by volunteers, offers free entry and displays works that belong in the Tate, but somehow ended up staying in the village where they were conceived. Cookham sits on the Thames. National Trust commons surround it. The landscape here feels like wind in the willows territory, all riverbanks and willow trees and meadows that flood in winter and bloom in spring. What changed everything was the Elizabeth line. Maidenhead Station is one stop away, and the Elizabeth Line now runs from Maidenhead to Bond Street in central London in under 50 minutes. Savills data confirms that the Elizabeth Line has materially redrawn the commuter map of this part of Berkshire. Property here is not cheap, averaging around £685,000. But compare that to equivalent riverside villages in Richmond or Henley, and there is a significant gap. The tarry stone on the high street is a glacial boulder that has marked the village centre since the Saxon period. It was here before London existed. It will be here after the property market sorts itself out. Continuing north into the Chiltern Hills, we arrive at West Wycombe in Buckinghamshire. This is a place where virtually the entire village is owned by the National Trust. 16th to 18th century inns and residences line the single main street. Just south of it stands West Wycombe Park, a Palladian mansion with grand colonnades and landscaped grounds open to visitors. Just north, carved a quarter of a mile into the chalk hillside, are the Hellfire Caves. These caves were excavated in the 1750s on the orders of Sir Francis Dashwood, who used them as a meeting place for his notorious secret society. The Golden Ball, perched on top of the church on the hill above the village, is visible from the motorway. Most drivers assume it is a decorative folly. It is in fact a small room where Dashwood and his associates once gathered. The George and Dragon Inn on the main street dates to the 14th century. Property in the wider High Wycombe area averages around £450,000, which is significantly less than equivalent Chilterns villages like Amersham or Beaconsfield, where prices regularly exceed £1 million. The National Trust ownership means West Wycombe cannot be overdeveloped or stripped of its character. What you see today is largely what existed 250 years ago. That level of preservation, this close to London, is extraordinarily rare. Those first four were the kind of places you drive through and think, yes, that is rather nice. The next set are different. These are the ones where I checked the numbers twice because they did not seem right. Sandy is a small market town in Bedfordshire. It is the kind of place you pass through on the way to somewhere else and barely register. The high street still has a butcher, a baker, and a scattering of independent shops that have not yet been replaced by estate agents and coffee chains. The Lodge Nature Reserve sits on the edge of town. The Greensand Ridge Walk passes through. The Sandy Show, an agricultural event, has been running here since 1858. What caught my attention is this. The Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, the RSPB, chose Sandy as its national headquarters. The RSPB, with the resources to locate anywhere in Britain, looked at the entire country and picked this small Bedfordshire town. The train to St Pancras takes 49 minutes. The average house price is around £310,000. That is roughly £240,000 less than London. A three-bedroom semi-detached house here costs less than a studio flat in most London boroughs. Savills identified this corridor in their 2025 research as offering the strongest price to commute ratio within an hour of London. Sandy appears on almost no property supplement lists. The town does not market itself. Residents, it seems, are perfectly content with this arrangement. Further east into Essex, we find Prittlewell. In 2003, builders preparing ground for a road widening scheme uncovered the most significant Anglo-Saxon royal burial found in Britain since 1939. A prince was buried with a gold foil cross, a lyre, and Byzantine artifacts dating to the early 7th century. The discovery rewrote the early history of Christianity in England. Outside archaeology circles, almost nobody knows this happened. Prittlewell is a conservation area with medieval origins. Priory Park, with its 12th century priory ruins, provides green space in the heart of the settlement. The train to Liverpool Street takes 55 minutes. The average house price sits at around £295,000, firmly below the national average for southern England. Most Londoners associate this stretch of Essex with Southend, day trippers, and kiss-me-quick hats. Prittlewell itself sits just north of the seafront in quiet streets that predate the tourism by about 800 years. The Saxon prince buried here carried treasures that now sit in Southend Museum. The house prices around his resting place would barely buy you a parking space in Chelsea. Continuing down the Kent coast, Folkestone presents one of the more remarkable turnaround stories in recent British property. When the ferry services to France declined and the Channel Tunnel opened nearby, Folkestone was left behind. The harbour fell quiet. Shops closed. It became one of the most deprived coastal towns in the entire southeast. Then something unexpected happened. The Roger de Haan Charitable Trust, funded by the fortune behind Saga Holidays, invested heavily in the creative quarter. The old town was regenerated into a thriving arts district. The Folkestone Triennial, an international contemporary art festival, brings sculpture and installation work to the streets and the seafront every 3 years. The Harbour Arm, a reclaimed Victorian pier, now hosts food stalls, live music, and weekend markets. Rock Salt Restaurant overlooks the water. The Lees Promenade offers Edwardian elegance along the cliff top, complete with a Victorian water-powered cliff lift. The high-speed rail from Folkestone West reaches St Pancras in 52 minutes. The average house price sits at around £310,000. That is less than Faversham, less than Ashford, and around £240,000 less than London. The Savills 2025 commuter data places Folkestone among the strongest emerging value propositions on the entire HS1 corridor. For a town with a direct high-speed link to London, a working harbour, and an internationally recognised arts programme, the numbers are genuinely difficult to explain. Now we come to a village that actively resists being noticed. In 2025, Savills published their annual analysis of commuter value. They examined rail station usage, house prices, and commute times across the entire country. Their overall winner for the single best value commuter location near London was a village that most people, including most estate agents, could not place on a map. Long Buckby in Northamptonshire. Population 4,500. A proper village with a proper high street. Direct trains to London Euston. Average house prices around £300,000, which is roughly half what you would pay in comparable villages in the Chilterns or the Cotswolds. The Church of St Lawrence has a remarkable spire visible across the Northamptonshire countryside. The Grand Union Canal runs through the parish. There are allotments, a primary school rated good by Ofsted, and a community that online forums describe as the kind of place where people still know their neighbours by name. Country Life magazine reported on the Savills finding and noted something peculiar. The research firm could not even find a local estate agent willing to comment on the accolade. The village, it appears, would rather not be noticed. When Britain's top property research firm names your village the single best value commuter location in the country, and the village responds with complete silence, that tells you everything you need to know about why it belongs on this list. Everything up to this point has been, in a sense, predictable. Pretty towns and clever commutes and numbers that surprise. The remaining places are different. These are the ones that made me rethink what I thought I knew about where people can actually live well near London. Corby in Northamptonshire has an average house price of around £225,000. That is the lowest of any town, with a direct rail connection to London in under 75 minutes. A 3-bedroom family house here costs less than a 1-bedroom flat in Zone 4 of the capital. The train reaches St Pancras in 71 minutes. In the 1930s, Stewarts and Lloyds opened a massive steelworks here and recruited thousands of workers from Scotland. By the 1960s, Corby had more Scottish residents per capita than anywhere outside Scotland itself. The accents remain to this day. The chip shops still serve deep-fried Mars bars. There is a Scottish Heritage Centre. The annual Highland Gathering draws crowds from across the Midlands. Rockingham Castle, owned by the same family for 500 years, sits on the edge of town, surrounded by parkland. Corby appears on every worst towns list on the internet. It is routinely mocked by people who have never visited. What those lists never mention is the price data, the transport links, or the fact that a town with a genuinely unique cultural identity offers family homes within commuting range of London at prices that simply do not exist anywhere else. The regeneration is visible. A new town centre has been built. Leisure facilities have been expanded. Housing estates have grown. The mockery continues, and the residents do not appear to mind. Low expectations, it turns out, keep prices exactly where they want them. Fleet in Hampshire has appeared in more best places to live surveys over the past decade than almost any other town in southern England. Halifax named it. The Royal Mail Address Survey flagged it. Muddy Stilettos included it. Fleet keeps winning awards. And yet it has no castle, no cathedral, no famous landmark, and no particular claim to cultural fame. It simply works. The train to London Waterloo takes 40 minutes. The M3 is minutes away. The New Forest and the South Coast are both under an hour. Schools here are rated outstanding at a higher rate than the national average. Crime rates are among the lowest in Hampshire. Fleet Pond is the largest freshwater lake in the county and sits right on the edge of the town's centre. There is a weekly farmers' market at Elvertham Heath. Independent shops still line the high street alongside the usual chains. Property here averages around £475,000. That is not cheap in absolute terms, but compare it to nearby Farnham at over £520,000 or Guildford at over £526,000, and the gap becomes meaningful. Fleet's secret is its ordinary nature. It does not try to charm you with heritage or dazzle you with regeneration. There is no ancient abbey. There is no celebrity chef restaurant. There is simply a well-run town with good schools, reliable transport, functioning healthcare, and a community that quietly gets on with things. For anyone in retirement especially, that quiet competence is worth more than any amount of scenery on a property brochure. Uckfield in East Sussex sits on the edge of the high-wheeled area of outstanding natural beauty. The River Uck runs through the centre. Ashdown Forest, the real 100-acre wood from the Winnie the Pooh stories, begins just a few miles to the north. The average property price is around £398,000, which is not just lower than London, but lower than many of the surrounding towns and villages in East Sussex. The Telegraph described Uckfield as that rare commuter town that is still overlooked by buyers, keeping property prices down. When a national newspaper publishes a sentence like that, the clock starts ticking. The locals know this. They have watched it happen to Lewes, which was once affordable and is now firmly out of reach for most first-time buyers. They have watched it happen to Tunbridge Wells, where the average semi-detached house now exceeds £500,000. Property forum threads from Uckfield residents express a complicated mixture of pride and anxiety. The concern, articulated repeatedly, is that national media attention will push prices up and change the character of the town. The annual bonfire night procession still fills the streets in the old Sussex tradition. The Uckfield Picture House is an independent cinema that has survived the multiplex era. The Bridge Cottage tea rooms do a proper cream tea. Residents will tell you carefully that the window is still open, but it is closing. In 2012, the council of a Surrey town formally added the words upon Thames to its name. Staines became Staines upon Thames. The reason was transparent. The town wanted to shake off its association with a fictional television character and signal that this was in fact a proper rebranded Riverside Surrey town with genuine credentials. The rebranding was widely mocked at the time. But something has happened in the years since that is worth paying attention to. The train from Staines to London Waterloo takes approximately 33 minutes. Heathrow Airport is a 10-minute drive. The River Thames runs through the centre of the town, with walking paths along its banks. Runnymede, the meadow where King John sealed the Magna Carta in 1215, is within walking distance. Windsor Great Park begins just across the river. The Lammers Recreation Ground offers green space beside the water. Memorial Gardens sit near the High Street, where a Saturday market has run for decades. The average house price here is around £395,000. In Surrey, that is below average. The county average sits considerably higher. Strip away the comedy associations and examine what is actually here. A Thameside Surrey town. 33 minutes from central London. 10 minutes from an international airport. Magna Carta Fields as its back garden. Prices below the county average. The question is not why would you live here? The question is why the rest of Surrey costs so much more for so much less. And so we come to number 13. In 2025, the Sunday Times named Saffron Walden the best place to live in the entire United Kingdom. Not the best in Essex, not the best in the southeast, the best in all of Britain. Most people outside the county had never heard of it. Saffron Walden is a medieval market town in northwest Essex with over 300 listed buildings. The largest surviving turf maze in Europe sits on the common, cut into the grass centuries ago, for reasons that nobody has satisfactorily explained. Audley End House, one of England's grandest Jacobean mansions, stands on the outskirts, surrounded by grounds designed by Capability Brown. The Bridge End Garden is a restored Victorian pleasure garden that English Heritage considers nationally significant. The market square fills on Tuesdays and Saturdays with stalls that have traded in some form since the 1200s. The pargeted plasterwork on the medieval buildings is a decorative technique involving moulded lime plaster that survived in Saffron Walden when it vanished from almost everywhere else in the country. Ornate patterns of flowers and figures cover the facades of buildings that have stood since the 15th century. The Eight Bells pub sits on the edge of the churchyard. The train from Audley End Station reaches Liverpool Street in just under an hour. The average house price sits at around £470,000. That sounds substantial until you compare it to similarly preserved market towns within striking distance of London. In the Cotswolds, a town with this level of heritage, this density of listed buildings, and this quality of community would cost you well over £600,000. Saffron Walden has all of it and remains, somehow, comparatively affordable. The saffron crocus that gave the town its name was cultivated here from the 14th century onwards. The spice trade made the town wealthy. That wealth built the buildings that still stand today. When the Sunday Times announced their verdict, local forums lit up with a mixture of pride and quiet dread. The recognition, residents noted, would inevitably bring attention. Attention brings buyers. Buyers bring price rises. The window that has kept Saffron Walden accessible for so long may not stay open much longer. Whether any of these suit you depends on what you are looking for. But if the London market has left you feeling priced out, defeated, or simply exhausted by the arithmetic of modern housing, know that alternatives exist. They are closer than you think, and they are not going to announce themselves. Please watch the video appearing on your screen next, and do not forget to subscribe to Cottage Dreams.